This is the Mulligan Stew Podcast. I'm Terry David Mulligan. This week on the show, our featured guest is Alberta singer-songwriter, broadcaster, actress, and author Jann Arden. When I connected with Jann in late 2017, she was in the midst of releasing a book she calls A Love Letter to Her Mother, Joan Richards, who suffers from Alzheimer's. That book is called Feeding My Mother, Comfort and Laughter in the Kitchen as My Mom Lives with Memory Loss. At the time, Jann was also readying her latest record, These Are the Days, and that record, produced by Bob Rock, features songs inspired by Jann's experiences in fulfilling her new role as caregiver to her mother. It was an extremely candid and introspective conversation. I hope you enjoy it. This is Jann Arden on the Mulligan Stew Podcast. Feeding My Mother, Comfort and Laughter in the Kitchen as My Mom Lives with Memory Loss. This is... First of all, thank you for the title. I am of the opinion that Snakes on a Plane was the greatest title in the history of movies because it told you exactly what the hell you were going to see when you went into the theater. Mm-hmm. And your title here does the same thing. And really, if people are going to pick this up and think that it's a recipe book and nothing more, they are in for a shock when they read these stories.
Yeah, the recipes are kind of a bonus, kind of an interactive, not an afterthought, but we just thought because really the catalyst of me starting to write was because my parents started coming for meals, and then pretty soon I was feeding them 3 times a day, 7 days a week sort of thing. So it really ramped up very rapidly into, as they were declining, my job got bigger. So yeah, I know it's a bit wordy, the subtitle, the subtext underneath the Feeding My Mother, but we really didn't know how else to explain what was happening. And it did have to do with food, and it did have to do with spirituality and, feeding my mother kindness and empathy and compassion and all those things. So it's quite metaphorical too.
Somewhere between the pulled chicken noodle, soak the noodles, and the vermicelli bowl, you're right about being the memory police for your parents. You had to remember their lives. And there was so much pain. I kept holding my breath. I wanted to see it work out.
I'm glad I wrote it down, Terry, because I think when I first started, you're so riddled with fear that I remember sitting down with my computer and thinking, I'm going to hit send and put this on Facebook. I'm not sure what's going to come of it, because there's a lot of shame associated with Alzheimer's and dementia. There's a lot of shame involved with brain isms, brain things. I don't know why, but people are reluctant to talk about them. They try and hide it away. Even the people with the diseases are ashamed of their memory loss. They don't like it, and that's why it's such a twisty thing. I was glad to get the words out, honestly. I was glad to just look at them on paper, and I was very, not glad's the wrong word, but relieved that so many people responded and said I'm in the same situation. I don't know why. I took a lot of solace in that.
And some of those emails that came back to you were just amazing.
Thousands of them. Thousands. The first blog that I ever did, I woke up to 3,500 comments.
Holy smoke.
I had tried to read them over the next few days, but I couldn't keep up, and they were impossible. People started talking to each other. So there was comments about the comments that they were making. So it was a very intricate web, and I thought, I've opened a door here, and people were just meeting each other online and talking about, what they were doing and what they weren't doing and what they thought they should be doing and how frustrating it was. But mostly it's very fear-based stuff. People are very angry and frustrated and afraid of where their future was going, because this is a disease that does not get better.
And it's going to get worse.
It will get much worse.
I've read an article today that was saying where we'll be at 2040 or 2050. It's just millions of people.
Yeah, they won't know what to do with them. So the race is on to find those missing links as far as how the brain is disconnecting itself and what's happening. They're starting to find a lot of things that are common threads. But as far as treatment of the disease, there is zero treatment. There's a few drugs that they don't really turn the hands of time back, but they will stabilize a patient in some cases. They'll keep them where they are longer.
Yeah.
Like my mom's been on an experimental drug for a couple of years, and now her testing is measuring that she's now dropped below what they think the drug can even, be useful in any way.
Jann,
so my mom has really deteriorated in the last 3 months. This will be our last Christmas in the house.
Of course it will.
Yeah.
Of course. I know that sometimes your words don't get through. You end up in arguments about where the keys went. But, I mean, everybody loses keys, but not like this. Does the music get through to her when have you played her the tunes for These Are the Days, and does she recognize what's going on?
I played it to her in the car, and I told her it was my new record. Bob and I had this finished in May, so I played it to her a couple of times driving in my car this past summer. She doesn't really comment. She asked me if it was me. She
Right.
goes, "That sounds like your voice." I said, "Yes." She goes, "Well, that's a nice tune. That's a nice tune." But as far as things that I've written specifically about her, there's no comment. Like, I was even nervous there's a song called "A Long Goodbye,"
Mm-hmm.
and it's about the deterioration of her, and just seeing her standing in the middle of a room, wondering why she's there, who she is, what she was doing. I can't even fathom what it must be like inside those people's heads. I know, with John, Spirit of the West, what he's been going through as a young man, and when he was still kind of able to articulate how frustrating, how scary, how dark, what a long, horrible hallway it was. It was hard to see that documentary about him.
I was talking to Tom Wilson about the healing power of music, specifically about John Mann, because it seems to lift John's spirit now. I don't know if it will have the same effect down the road, but what does it do?
It seems to be something that all memory loss, dementia, and Alzheimer's really, it's like the last final frontier. They will remember music, and a lot of times even Alzheimer's patients they can't feed themselves, but they can play piano. They can play a little bit on a piano from something they knew from 60, 70 years ago. My mom loves music. There's always music on in the house. And a lot of times she can say, "Well, that's Dean Martin," or that's, I'm blown away by the name she pulls out, and she can sing along. So I'm profoundly just taken aback by where she rises to, where she can step up to when music is on. Mine, it's not so much because, of course, with an original record, it's not familiar music. It's brand new. She knows it's my voice, but she doesn't know where the song is going. If she knows songs from before, then it resonates in her mind. But yeah, it's an important part of our day. Very, very much so. Like all the Christmas stuff, huge.
Do you play your Christmas album?
Yeah, she knows it because it's all traditional music. So she knows all those versions. And, Bob and I kept it very, very simple. We didn't noodle around or, make a mockery of these Christmas songs. We did the songs exactly really how they were probably done in the 50s and 60s. So it's a very traditional record.
But the thing about a great traditional record is it comes back every year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm working this record for the third year now. Buble's record that he did 10 years ago,
Yep.
A Michael Buble Christmas,
Yep.
is in the top 10 of the Billboard 100.
Yeah, I saw that.
For the 10th year in a row. So, I'm sure there's part of him that hates that. Michael he'd rather not talk about Christmas. But that record has just been a phenomenal, I mean, it's an iconic staple now of, as much as Bing Crosby or the Carpenters' Christmas record.
It's just amazing. It's an incredible.
So, I mean, I can only hope, hey, I'd be thrilled if my Christmas record was kicking around 20 years from now.
Me too. I'd like to be there to listen. The album.
You and me both.
The book is called Feeding My Mother, Comfort and Laughter in the Kitchen as My Mom Lives with Memory Loss. And there's a new album coming that I have listened to for the last 2 days that is absolutely fabulous. It's called These Are the Days. It is, Jan. It is fantastic. Well, we'll get to that in a second. Okay. You talk about laughter a lot, and we see it in the book. I mean, it's you and your mom are still laughing. You can still laugh at things.
Oh God, yeah. We crack up quite a bit. She says some classic stuff. I mean, she's just very funny, and she's always been funny, but without being a comedian. She's just got this sardonic, dry sense of humor. It's like I remember the one day, and it's in the book. We were looking for the remote control. I mean, for one thing, they were using a remote that we didn't even have the TV for it anymore. I don't even know where they dug that remote out from. And then at one point, they were trying to use the phone to change channels of the TV. Like, there was all sorts of... And then, I eventually found the remote. It was in the giant 40-pound bag of
dog food. Yes.
And, I was furious. Veins popping out of my temples. I'd been running around the house trying to find this thing, trying to do stuff in my own life, and I was running across the goddamn yard every hour to help them. And, you do have to laugh because she said, Jan, we would have found it eventually when we fed the dog. Like, okay, Jesus. But in the meantime, she said, you're the only person freaking out. And I'm like, and I'd catch myself going, oh my God, I'm an asshole.
Yeah,
like,
yes,
what?
Exactly.
What happened to me?
You talk about you being torn between wanting back the life that you had with them and knowing that you're doing what's best for all of you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's universal. Everybody gets torn like that, or would be.
Yeah. Oh, to want things the way they were. And, when my dad had his first stroke 10 years ago, it's quite a bad one. He came around eventually, but it really tempered him. It was like lightning hit the anger and the mean part of his brain and zapped it out. This hollering alcoholic guy that hated life and was so hard done by it zapped him. And it left this very kind, altruistic, dog-loving, bird-watching guy. And my mom said, I wish this would have happened to him 30 years ago.
Wow. Did your parents...
So she could see, she could see the other side of, bad things happen to people, but there is a good side to it.
Your parents made you aware of your own mortality?
Very much so. And, it has crossed my mind many times that, am I going to be dealing with this kind of mental, blockades? Am I going to be dealing with this? My grandmother was exactly like my mom. My dad had dementia, but he was also a severe alcoholic for many, many years, smoked a couple packs a day and never exercised a day in his life. And he had a very specific kind of dementia. But my mom has Alzheimer's. Yeah. My grandmother had Alzheimer's. So I'm hoping that, if I just keep going forward in my life and exercising and eating well and, really looking after myself and being active, that I can avoid it. But I don't know, Terry. It crosses my mind a lot. It scares me.
I wrote something down that says, we all leave the hose on. I mean, you make a reference to the fact that somebody left the hose on, right?
Oh, God.
Them, right?
So many times.
But yeah. I mean, I fill a fish pond, and I leave the hose on, and those fish are swimming back, trying not to be part of the lawn. So, I mean, I do it. I found the channel changer in the dishwasher. I mean, everybody does stupid things. I
know, and see, this is where that part of it is all par for the course. It's like muscle memory. Sometimes I'll look at a word on a page and I'm like, is that how you spell this? Like THIS, and I will look at it like that can't be right. And your mind is this vast thing. But the one thing that I do take solace in, if we are smart enough to have the cloud where we store billions of bits of information, pictures, emails, letters,
right,
documents, is it so far out of reach to think that the universe in all its almighty wisdom doesn't have all of my mom's memories, all of my dad's thoughts and hopes stored, and that the body's just like the little key that you stick into the computer.
Yep.
And that everything is stored somewhere. And I really do believe that. I think my mom will be reunited with all of those things when she's out of this body. This is a difficult time for her as far as being a human being, and we all go through it.
You write last night at 3 a.m. I was reading this page. You write December the 24th, 2016. You're grateful. You're grateful for the mishaps, the mistakes, the failures, and you believe that there are a lot of things to look forward to in 2017. How'd the year turn out?
Fantastic. Like in so many ways, I'm a much better version of myself. I finally started looking after myself. I mean, I have been the last few years, but I really hunkered down. I think I let go of a lot of, I wanted to drag Mom with me. I wanted her to remember. I was very angry with her, and like you said, the memory police, and I finally let go. I go where she goes now.
Yep.
And my life's a lot easier. I've let her go. My mom is gone. My mom is gone. I have somebody else that I'm caring for. Yes, it's her, but it's really not. And I've had to reconcile myself with that. And I felt very orphaned. I felt really sorry for myself. But I'm glad that I have still this version of her. And she rises up as much as she can to let me know that I'm doing okay. And she'll say, I wouldn't know what to do without you, Jan. And she still knows who I am.
How's your heart in all of this?
My heart's been really good. I haven't had any kind of medical heart things for a long time, but I don't drink anymore. And, I gave up all these stupid things that that we all do to ourselves. But I'm 55 years old. I mean, at some point you have to just say, listen, I've got to change the way I'm living. But I feel better now than I did, 20 years ago. So I just, and working with Bruce Allen is a dream.
Yep.
I mean, he's got me engaged in so many things. I mean,
that's a great team.
Between him and my road manager, Chris, who, Chris Brunton and I sat down, in January. Well, we sat down first and we said, what does our year look like? What does 2017 look like? And then Chris and I flew out to Bruce's office and we sat down and said, this is what we'd like to have happen. And Bruce is like, absolutely. And he just put the wheels in motion. Like, Chris is like, do the book, have everything in there. Because people were saying, I'd love a coffee table book of your road pictures. Are you ever going to do a recipe book? My mom's got Alzheimer's too. And we were just like, yeah, maybe we should just do it all together. And we took it to Random House. Bruce, took the idea to Random House, and they were like, let's try it. We don't know what it's going to be, but let's do it.
Oh, but Jen, it turned out so well.
It really, it has surpassed it's such a love letter to my mom. And if I never sold a book, I would have this great scrapbook of Mom. But I am blown away by the response, Terry. I can't even get my head around it.
And the recipes, you had help there, but these are, like, for example, there was a time you describe in the book where you want your mom to put on 5 pounds, but you want to lose 5 pounds. So
yeah,
you had different recipes going on.
Yeah, it was tricky, but I've always loved cooking. I've always loved it. But when I went to put the recipes together, I'm like, oh my God, I never write any of this stuff down. I don't know how much cinnamon or how much flour. So I kind of, as I went through it in my head, I estimated it, and I sent all my stuff to my wonderful friend, Julie Van Rosendahl, who's...
Yay, Julie.
Julie, just a brilliant foodie, just a great ambassador to cooks, home cooks, chefs everywhere. And she really made sense of it, because I said, I don't know how you write a recipe out, Julie. She goes, leave it with me. I said, is this actually something? She goes, oh, yeah, it's fine. She goes, you got all the right stuff. Everything looks good. I'm like, because that's what I do at home. So she made sense of all that stuff for me. I'm like, oh, my God.
Well, way to go. And you can concentrate on what you had to write about.
Exactly.
By the way, a couple of recipes, because this is a Food and Wine show. The 4-bean veggie stoopy, is it? Stoops?
Yeah.
Stoop?
Well,
okay.
I always thought I was making soup, Terry,
so
but it was always so thick you needed like
stoop.
a fork. Yeah.
Okay.
So I just called it stoop.
By the way, it reminded me of the campfire scene from Blazing Saddles.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Candygram for Mr. Mambo. It's one of my favorite movies. I don't even want to admit to that, but any kind of farting scene in a movie is very high.
Absolutely,
I hold it in high regard,
and it's socially acceptable now.
Very socially acceptable.
And a 2-part question: you talk about gratitude. You have great eloquence about gratitude, and then you go directly into a split pea soup thing. And I'm thinking maybe that the split peas were a metaphor for split lives.
No kidding, right?
I was thinking too hard.
I make that soup twice a month. And it's something that my mom and dad both really loved. And you can throw it in a pot and forget about it for the day. So all those things are easy. Honestly, if I can make them, I really mean this. Anyone can do it.
Well,
Anybody.
I'm doing it.
Dough,
I'm doing it tonight.
Pizza dough is still it's fail proof.
Yeah.
That pizza dough is, if you follow those instructions, and the pancakes that don't have any flour, banana, egg, and peanut butter, you will kind of be mind boggled when you eat those things because.
I love the way you put things in capital letters. Don't cut your fingers off.
Well, I meant it.
Yeah. Don't burn the hair on your arm.
No, you can't.
Tell the audience about Trump and the squirrels, will you?
Well, my mom, she just loved watching the squirrels so much, like going up and down the trees and eating them. They're just crazy. And she just thought that. She didn't even have to say his name. She said that guy would, that would serve him well to watch the squirrels or do what the squirrels are doing or something. And I always knew who she was talking to. She refers to him a lot. And Trudeau. She calls Trudeau a twerp.
Yeah.
And
that little twerp.
The little twerp. The son of that other guy. The little twerp. It is funny, but she just thinks that if Trump was able to watch the squirrels, that he'd be a much better version of himself. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right, Mom.
All of this goes back full circle, Jan, to These Are the Days, which is coming out February the 2nd.
I can't wait.
Oh my God. Here's what really caught my throat. All the Little Things.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah,
I just love it. No, here they are. All the Little Things, Perfect Symphony. Oh, I love that. The call and response of that. These Are the Days, the title track. Everybody's pulling on me, of course. And The Long Goodbye. So we talked about A Long Goodbye. Who is Franklin?
Franklin is a town in Nashville. And it's a town in Tennessee. So it's about an hour from Nashville.
Right.
And I ended a very long relationship 2 years ago. And so there's a lot of aftershocks, I think, that have come out on this record. And it's very, it was great to write, but I'm glad that I actually put them into song form because it made much more sense in my mind.
Sure.
But Franklin it really is just that letting go. And when you finally get to a stage in a relationship, when you wish the other person well, I'm sorry this didn't work out. And, we're better off for it, though. We'll be better off.
Well, you don't want to carry that.
But Franklin was just a very visceral kind of a glimpse of things that you do with the person that you love. These memories of eating ice cream in bed and binge watching things and driving down the Natchez Trace, which I've done so many times. It's this beautiful winding highway through Tennessee. And it really is kind of old school writing. Franklin was a very surprising song for me. And I know the song title's kind of weird because even my record company said, why don't you call it, My Broken Heart? I'm like, I don't want to call it that. I want to call it Franklin.
How many songs did you take to Maui when you were writing with Bob Rock?
I didn't have anything. He told me to write down
stuff.
He said, I want you to just write down some sentences. I want you to write down some little couplets, like literally things you're thinking of. And I had a bunch of stuff about my mom, a bunch of stuff about, relationships. Obviously, it's me. And Chris and I flew over there. Chris's parents have a condo, and they very graciously let us stay there for the week. But we were nearing like the end of our trip, and Bob finally showed up. I said to Chris, what if he doesn't show up? Chris and I were like walking 40 friggin' miles a day, and like we might as well do something constructive. And when Bob got there, he showed up with 2 plastic bags full of chords, a keyboard, a guitar. Chris was hauling shit up in the elevator. We wrote 4 songs that day. We wrote A Long Goodbye that day. And he brought riffs. He would play me these.
Oh, man.
There would be a loop, and there'd be a guitar thing. And he'd say, try singing that. And, 9 out of 10 times, what I had written down I was able to put into the maps that he'd created. We were still in shock, Bob and I, of what we did. It's kind of a haze to me. We wrote a lot of songs. We were going to write one. And we pretty much wrote the whole album together, although all the little things I wrote with Alison Cornell, my longtime utility player. She does piano, viola, mandolin, sings.
Everything.
And then Leave the Light On I wrote with my keyboard player, Darcy. And he always sends me cool riffs. So, but the rest of it is Bob and I. But you can really hear Bob rock. I mean, things like One More Mile to Go.
I know.
Just the river song, and there's just so many things that are very Bob, like Little Bird, just sings and grooves and progressions I would never do in a million years.
I love Little Bird. I love Little Bird.
Oh, I'm glad you like it, Terry. That means a lot. I think it's the best thing I've done in 20 years.
I think the whole album is a crowning achievement, considering where you came from, considering what was going on in your life.
Well, maybe that's when music really does blossom. It comes to the forefront, because of obstacles. I've never been very successful writing when I'm happy. I don't. It's just not my thing. I mean, I always like those minor chords, and Bob's like that too. He's like he's had a lot of experiences and he's had a lot of defeat in his life. As much as he's had successes, the guy's been through so much. His mother died of Alzheimer's. So we had a lot in common. I think his mom just passed away a couple of years ago. She was in a home just outside of Vancouver. And she thought she was living in a hotel. Bob's got some classic stories. She kept coming to the nurse's desk wanting to pay her bill.
Oh, yeah. Your dad tried to sneak out of the home he was in?
Many times. He had a homing device. We just want to get back to where we were. We think if we can somehow get there, that the ship won't sink anymore. That was heartbreaking because my dad was in there, but he had more of physical things. When he left, when he died, then my mom she walked out to the end of the plank and never came back. So it's funny what almost a 60-year marriage will do. People do a dance.
What are you going to be when you grow up?
I hope just happy.
Yep.
I hope content and resilient. I think my parents did me a favor by letting me fail. And they just never picked me up. They never, come here, give us that. We'll put that together for you. They're just like, well, you better figure it out because this is life. So I'm very grateful for that. And they were very open-minded and really liberal, forward-thinking people. And I think they gave me such a platform in which to spring off of. So I'm glad where I'm at. I might even attempt another relationship again someday when I'm 70. Maybe that'll be a good time.
Okay.
And but I'm everything's good. I'm excited about the record. I think Bob and I still have a long story to tell. So I'm hoping to knock off a couple more records with him before it's all said and done.
Well, take care of each other.
We will.
Thank you, Jann Arden Richards. My conversation with the one and only Jann Arden. Jann is currently touring her record, These Are the Days, through Alberta, with dates in Fort McMurray, Camrose, Fort Saskatchewan, Lloydminster, and Red Deer. Those dates can be found at jannarden.com. That's all the time we have for this week's Mulligan Stew podcast. You can subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, and Spotify. I'm Terry David Mulligan. Thank you for listening.